My name's Mickey Ferrugiaro and this is my video class for the Put a Ring on It rotator cuff. I have done it in two different colorways, the elegant with the golds and then a day wear one, black and white, so then this will pop up your outfits for daytime. And they both have the ring that spins. So we spin quite well, and we're going to learn how to make these. So I'm going to take you through row by row so that you can make your own Put a Ring on It rotator cuff. We are starting our Put a Ring on It. I'm working in the black and white colorway here, and I have strung my size, and I make a 160 size 2, 160 beads for size 2 for my hand. So you just want to string the 160 beads and then make them into a circle by going through the first bead again. So here you have the base for your bangle. Okay, so that of course counts as row 1 and 2, and for row 3 you're just going to work again using the white delicas, and you're just going to work the row in peyote stitch. Nice and easy to get you started. So just work your beads. Don't pull too tight on the tension. You can always tighten it up later, but you can't, make it looser later. And when you're working on tubular peyote, sometimes you get to the end and it's kind of tight to get your last beads in, and it becomes tight to be able to push them around and get your needle through. So don't be a really tight beader, be a firm beader. That's the key to it all. Bead firmly, not tightly. Okay, so I will meet you back here once you've completed row 3, and you're going to have all of the beads looking with your ups and downs. I will meet you back here. So I am here at the end of row 3, and what you want to do is lay your work flat before you put that last bead in, and just make sure that you've got all your beads without a twist. And this is another reason for not working it too tight. If you work tightly, this band will twist all the way around and you won't get it to lay nice and flat, and you may kink it when you're joining. So I'm stepping up, and you can see I've got a nice smooth finish on that. If you go through the wrong bead, you ended up with a little, if you get it twisted, you'll end up with a little jagged section where it doesn't sit exactly right. It's a minute thing, and people probably won't notice, but you probably will if you're anything like me. Okay, so you've also got to watch that, for this row, make sure nothing gets twisted. So all there is for the next few rows is working in white delicas in peyote stitch. You need a total of 23 rows. This is going to form the track that your ring is going to spin on. So it's the nice flat bit, and we'll add a roll to each end of this, so each edge gets a roll. So just keep going. You can hit pause and come back when you've got 21 rows done, and that's what I will be doing. So I'll see you back here with a nice piece of beadwork. Okay, so here we are after you've been away making your 21 rows. So you've a total now of 21 rows. So 10 of the down row and 11 of the up rows. And now we're going to start to create a gutter. Now, I call it a gutter. Basically, it's just a little dent in the beads, and it's where the tubing will sit. It makes it a little bit easier when you're working for the tube to sit in something. It doesn't move around, and it just gives a nice kind of look to the bangle too, so that the roll looks more of a roll of the whole rather than sitting just on the top. Okay, so what you want to be doing with this time is using the Delica 15. I'm going to use a black matte here, just because it'll add a little bit of a punch to the bracelet. You'll only see it on the inside, but you know, it looks kind of good when you've done it. Could do it in white if you didn't want it to be seen, but we're going for black. Helps us see where we're going. And it's just a row all the way around of the black 15s. So this is row 22. And that's all it is. We'll come back for the next row. And here we are at the end of row 22. A nice little dotted line on there. Row 23, we're going to go back to our white size 11 Delicas. So you're going to work this row, and then you will work another one in the black 15s. And I will see you back at the end of that, and so we'll see how the gutter is, the little dent in the gutter. So finish this row and then work another one in the black 15s, and I will see you back here. Okay, so you will have come to this point after row 24 with your 2 rows of the 15s, and you can see how it's curved in, that it's got that definite curving inwards. And the next 4 rows, you're going to go back and use the white Delicas. And as you're doing this, you'll see that, I did a few to show you here, you can see the gutter as it's forming. You can see this little dent in there where the black beads are, just so it goes down. And that's so that'll house the tubing and stop it from sliding. Okay, so you're working in white Delicas, so just going all the way around. So just keep adding the beads, and I will meet you back here after 4 rows, and we will start doing some increasing. Here we are at the end of row 28, so we've worked our 4 rows in white after our black 15s. As you can see, we've got quite a nice bangle shape going on. It's got some nice firm quality to it. Good, it's what you need. And now we're going to start our increases. Our increases are done very gradually, so as to keep a nice smooth roll. So row 29, you're going to start with 4 stitches in the white Delicas. So here's our 1, 2, 3, and 4. Our 5th stitch is a yellow size 11 seed bead. And that's all it is. 4 white Delicas, 1 yellow seed bead. Our little pops of colour. And that's all you do for this row, all the way around. The seed bead every 5th stitch. So when you've finished this row, I want you to work 1 more just in the white Delicas. So just a straight row of white Delicas after this one, and then we will come back and do a little bit more increasing. Here we are at the end of row 30, and you can see I'd added the yellow beads and I added the white beads for the next row. So for the next row, which is row 31, we're going to work in the white delicas, and basically you're just going to work around regular 1 bead per stitch until you get to the yellow bead, and then you're going to add 2 delicas above the yellow bead. And so that is the increase there. So that's all you've got to do on this round, and once you've done that, we're then going to put the tubing on, and I'm actually going to show you that next. Okay, so you can see we're actually there. You can see your groove in there for your, you know, your little gutter for your tubing to sit in. Nice and easy. It's an easy design. Okay, we will see you back for the tubing. Here we are back, ready to put our tubing on. And the tubing that I use, I buy at Home Depot. This is the label that you would be looking for. And you can see it says 1/4 inch outside diameter. Now, if you get really close, you can see that 8mm. I'm not sure what planet they're on, but 1/4 inch typically equals 6mm and not 8. So don't be fooled by that. I say 6mm, 1/4 inch. That's correct. The label is wrong. Anyway, this is a really nice one. You can see the inner diameter and the outer diameter. That helps for the flexibility. If you get one that's too thick, it won't bend as well. So this is a nice one for the bangles. Okay, so when you're measuring, I don't give an actual measurement for each bangle, and that's because if you're beading at different tensions, if you're a looser beader or too tight a beader, it will fluctuate. So the way that you just do it is you wrap it around so it sits in the gutter. Okay, and then you can just mark it with a pen, or if you're just like me, I just go and cut it straight. I'll just make a little nick in the tubing, take it off, and then cut it all the way through. And here we are with our piece of tubing. Now, the best way, there's a few ways that you could put this together. You could just tape it on the edges. It's not that great. Quite a lot of times, by the time you finished working on it, it's slid off or it's opened up or whatever. The best thing I found is using, where are we? Using one of these little magnetic clasps. Now these are made for thinner tubing that you would glue in, and they're just there. I have a link to them on the tutorial. I just use half, and this is how I do it. You insert the two, see, it's a perfect fit for this tubing. You insert half of it into one side of the tubing, pull the other side around into a ring and slide it on. And voila, you have it. Now, the great thing is that if you find that you did make your tubing a little bit big, you can take it off and adjust it. You can wrap it around, you know, you could, this way, where we're in this stage, we can just slide it over the flat edge as it slides down, and then it'll slot into that groove, and you can feel it slot. Make sure it's tight, and it's there. But should you find you need to alter it, you can actually just take it off and actually put it right around and fasten it back up again. So it makes it for a really nice, easy way of doing things. And you can see how your beading is starting to lay against the tubing at this section. And now we need the tubing in so that we've got something to work around, and get the roll really smooth around the tubing. Make sure that we have the tension correct. So there you are. You can actually at this point, you could also cut a second piece of tubing the same length for the other side of the bangle, so that you've got that one ready to go when you need it. So we will continue on with our beading. And for our next row, this is row 32, and we're just going to do the white delicas, just white delica in every stitch, and treat those pairs, when you get to them, treat them as one bead. So you're going to go through both of those pairs, both of those beads in the pair. And as you can see this, you can see as you put that in, it just starts to just roll over there beautifully. I'm just adding one bead per stitch and treating the pair of beads as one through them both. And I will see you for the next row. After finishing row 32. Now for row 33, you're going to be again working in the white delicas. Just one bead per stitch until you get to your gap of where you have two. And there you're just going to put two beads on top. And that's all there is to the row. So one bead, two beads on top of your gap. One on one, two on two. Simple as that. And we will see you back for the next row. Row 34. On row 34, we're going to add another colored bead. So we're going to place this colored bead in between the yellow ones. So you want to work your 4 stitches, again treating that pair of beads as one, and then it's right in between the yellow beads, and we're going to add a red bead. So right in the middle there, and then you're going to work 4 stitches in the white, treating that pair as a single bead, and that's your 4 stitches, and you're ready for a red bead again. And so that's all that is, all the way around. Just making sure that those red beads are right in the middle of the yellow ones. Okay, I will see you after you've done this. You can actually work the next row. The next row is going to be all done in whites, and you will add 2 white beads on top of the pairs. So you can do row 35 as well as 34, and I'll see you back here after row 35, ready to start row 36. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 35, about to start row 36, and you might find that your your tubing starts to open up a little bit. Just keep it closed, and you might also see that the beading starts to lift off a little bit. Don't worry too much about that. You can always trim down the tubing if it's, because it can be that it's a little bit too big. Also watch your tension. Those are some issues that you want to do. You want to make sure that you're keeping this over the tubing. Okay, so row 36 is pretty simple. You're going to treat the pairs of beads as one bead, and then just work in regular peyote, and when you get to the on top of the red bead, you're going to add 2 delicas. So just like we did with the yellow bead, so that we've got that increase, and that will help you also as if you're seeing it lift a little bit on the tubing. This is in the next increase that helps it come down. When we get further on and we get past the main part of the tubing and we start to close up a bit, then it'll all pull in and it sits in place very easily. So don't stress too much. Okay, so that's all you're doing is adding 1 bead per stitch, treating the 2 beads, the pair, as 1 bead, and adding 2 beads over the red bead. So if you work that round, and then on the next round you'll just be doing all in the white delicas, and you'll just add 1 bead and over 1 bead, and then 2 beads over the 2 beads. Simple. And we'll see you back for row 38. So here I am finishing up row 37, which has just been done in the whites, white delicas with 2 over the pairs. And now we'll step up. And for row 38, it's pretty much the same thing. Again, whites, 1 white over 1 white, and 2 whites over the 2 whites. And you see, and you're just keeping it going around the tubing. Almost halfway at this point, so you're seeing that, and we're going to start to close up after a little bit. If you find it sliding back on the tubing, you can again, shorten your tubing a little bit, but once we start to decrease, then this will smooth out and go right around and hold the tubing in tightly. You can see it has a tendency to pull away, just the nature of it, and as soon as we pull it in, it'll be tighter. So it doesn't actually matter if this is a little bit, if you've got a gap here, because once you close it up, it's actually kind of a good thing, because once you close it up, this gap will disappear. Okay, so carry on with row 38, and we'll come back to add our blue beads next. We are at the end of row 38, having stepped up. So we're ready for row 39, and row 39 we're going to add our blue bead. So you're going to work with the white delicas, and you're just going to work your regulars, treating your pairs as 1 bead, and just a bead in each stitch. And when you come to the pair this time, you're going to add the blue, one of the blue beads. Okay, so that's all you're going to do. Whites all the way, and then the blue beads on top of the pair. Where you would normally put 2 beads, you're just going to put the 1 blue bead. Oops, it's not sitting correctly. Gotta watch that. And so there you go. Just keep doing this all the way around. Finish this row, and then work the next row, which is all in whites, just adding your 1 bead over the 1 bead, 2 beads over the 2 beads, and then I'll meet you back here for row 41. So here I am at the end of row 40, and I've just stepped up after row 40. You can see that we've got the blue beads coming in, and you can see as we're you can push your, if you push your tubing in, and you'll see as you're tightening it, it does actually start to do the curve around. Okay, so we're closing that up. This next row, row 41, you're going to use the whites again, solid white row, and the difference on this one is that instead of putting 2 beads, 2 of the white delicas over our seed beads, we're only doing 1 on this one because we're going to reduce. So it's kind of the opposite from what you did up for the yellow bead. So we're basically, if you look at the other side of the roll, we're going from this end down now. So that's all there is to it. You're doing your 4 white beads, treating your pairs as a 1 bead, and adding just 1 bead over the blue. So basically, just 1 white bead in every stitch. Here we are, just finishing row 42. I've just stepped up so you can see where we're at. You can see how it's now curling around the tubing. And while you're working, you can just, you know, if you're having difficulty keeping it in, just give it a tug down and pull your thread tight so that your beading closes around the tubing. So just pushing it down with your nail so it's well in there. So it ends up being a very smooth finish. Okay, so for the next row, row 43, again, you're just going to do the same. So you're just going to be working in the whites, and you'll find that this row closes up again even more so. And if you feel that it's not closing in, you can do this as another row. You can do another row of this before we put the finishing beads on. Sometimes the finish on the beads makes them a little bit smaller and you know, or a little bit larger. And when you've got a lot of beads, that can make the difference. You know, so you have to always use a little bit of your own judgment on these. Okay, so finish this row in the whites, and then we'll come back, take a look at it, see if you need to work an extra row or whether we can go straight on to row 44 and do the ending. Okay, so I'm back at the end of row 43, and for this one we could add another row to close this up a little bit more. So we're going to add a row that's not in the tutorial, but it's just another row of white. You kind of just have to use your own judgment. You don't want it to go all the way in. You know, we're not working right around so it tucks that far, but we just want to go around the corner. So we'll try this row and then see how far it goes. So you're just going to be doing the same thing with the 2 delicas over the 2 delicas. Just all the way around. And if it's already closed, then you don't have to worry about this row. You know, if you're using the finishes on the beads can make the difference. So with the gold one, the gold bangle that I did, the beads seem to maybe be a bit larger with the finish and come around a bit further, whereas the white ones, not so much. And I'm sure with black you may have some issues with the black, because black delicas always seem to be the smallest of all of them. So you kind of have to just make your adjustments as you go. You can see as we're doing this now, it's got a nice roll to it. that row is probably going to do it by the time we add our 15s in there as well. That will work. Okay, so we're just adding an extra row on for this one. So that's it, go all the way around, and then we'll come back to put our row of 15s on. Okay, so here we are after that extra row, and you can see how nicely closed in it is now, and that is perfect for how you need it to be going into this last row. In the last row we're going back to the 15 delicas, and this is just going to close that last row up a little bit and then finish it off. So you're just going to add one in each stitch. Now if you did this extra row, it will literally be one in every stitch. If you didn't need to do the extra row, you will have points where you need to add 2 over the 2-hole gap, 2-bead gap. But that is all this row is just working a row in the black. And you see that gives just a really nice little finished edge to it. And we'll just sit in there. Okay. And now that you've done this, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to do it all over again. Because you need this roll on the other side. So you are going to go back and you're going to start with your rows of black. So the black, the 15s on here. So you start with that row of black 15s, white 11s, black 15s, and you'll continue and make this roll on the other side. And then once you have finished that, I will meet you back here, and that will be your track all ready to go. So next time I see you, you'll have a two rolled piece. Happy beading! So here we are with the track bangle finished. So you've got your rolls on both edges, and you're ready to add your spinner on. So that's where we will go next. We will make the spinner for this one. Okay, so we're ready to start the spinner ring. And here I have strung 180 beads for the size 2 cuff, and that is 18 sections of 7 black and 3 white beads, the delicas. And we're going to work flat so that it's easier to add to the track rather than work it around the track from this point. You're going to work in flat even count peyote. This of course is rows 1 and 2. So you'll work rows 3 and 4 in D beads. You'll work row 5 in B beads, that's the little 15s. Row 6 back to the D beads. Row 7 again in the little 15s, the B beads. And then you're going to work 3 rows in D beads, and that takes you through row 10. So we'll come back and I'll explain why row 11 is a little bit different. So here we are after row 10, and you can see you have created quite a nice little gutter in this. This is where your tubing's going to sit, so it just makes it a lot easier to create the gutter off the track than trying to do it on it. The last row, row 11, we're going to place the little white beads in the middle of the opposite side. So what you're going to do is you're going to work in the black delicas for this row. This is row 11. And you just want to make sure, and following your bead count, which is 3, and then your white, and just check that it's right in between. Okay, so you can see that that's going in between. That's important for your flowers because things won't work out properly if you don't get that right. So that's all it is. Just make sure that you're putting those white beads right in the middle. So it's just your general 4 blacks after that. Once you've got that first one in, you don't have to worry. It's 4 blacks and 1 white. Finish this row, and then the next row we're going to actually zip this together, stitch the ends together on the base. Okay, so here we are with our band all ready to be joined together. Now we're going to just slip it around the track, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see what we're doing. If there's a tricky part of doing this design, it's just this little part here. Because we have to join these together while they're on there. Okay, so if you can see here, I'm coming out of this bead, and I'm going to go across and go on the last bead of the other side of the band. And then I'm going to go down the next bead. And then I'm going up the same bead as the thread is coming out of. So you have the loop that looks like that. And that's what we're going to create all along. So I'm just going to come down the next bead, and let's just cinch this up. So get real close, you can see how this just cinches up there. Okay. So we're going in through the second bead and turning. Okay, and then we're going up the second bead on this side, and we're turning. Get my tail thread caught there. Tail threads are okay, so you can see that it's just a matter of weaving it back and forward. So we're coming out of the third bead there, we're going into the third bead here. This is a little tricky, just getting your needle through. And then we turn again, go up through the next little white bead, and then we're going through the third bead on the other side, the fourth bead on that side, you have to keep laying it flat so you can see, and then back through the fourth bead on this side, which is that little white one. If we can get in there to get it. That's what I said, sometimes it can be a little tricky. Here we go. Turn again. Well, this one went really easy, and it went straight through that next bead, through bead 4 of the other side, and turn, and at this point we are able to go through. You can see I'm managing to go through both the beads to join it, and then we go through the white one and through that last black on that side. Okay, and just make sure that you give that a nice little tug so that it's all cinched up. Now it's hard to see where the join is. So as we're at this side of the band now, we're going to continue working on this edge. So you want to step up in the direction you're going to work, which for me is this way. If you're a left-hander, it might not be that way. And then you're going to continue with row 12. And for this side, row 12 is 3 of your black delicas. And you can see if you push the back, pull the band out with this hand with the thread and then push it together on the side so it sits out so it's easier to work. You can see it's hanging out there and it's tight in the back. So you want all that extra space up front where you can, it helps you get to the beads. Okay, so this is our 3rd black bead. And then we're going to add our yellow bead in. So the yellow 11 seed bead. And that's all that is. It's actually, the repeat is 4 black delicas and 1 yellow seed bead. And you're going to do that all the way around, and I will see you back here for the next row. Here we are at the end of row 12 with all our yellow beads added, and next we're going to work row 13, and that's nice and easy. It's just your 3 blacks and 2 whites. And that's all you will do all the way around. Okay, so row 13, 3 blacks, 2 whites. And we'll be back. So here we are back for at the end of row 13, ready to do row 14. And row 14 I've already started here so that we can make it easy for you to see. We are going to be putting 2 petals on top of one of the flowers, and then we're working 4 black delicas, trying not to get our thread caught, of course. So our 4 in between the flowers, and then on the next flower we're only going to put 1 white on top. So basically what you're going to do is alternate 2 and 1 flowers all the way around. So that the top petals of this flower have got either 2 petals, then 1 petal, 2 petal, 1 petal, all the way around, and we will be back for the next row. Okay, so finished off row 14, and this is row 15. Row 15 is 4 black beads closing up the flowers. And then we're going to place our white bead to start our next flower. So in the middle of those, and then back to our 4 black, and treating of course the 2 white beads on top of the flower as 1 bead, going through them both. That is all there is to this row. Once we've done this, we're going to leave the thread attached, and we're going to go onto the other side and start working some rows on this side. So once we've got this done, then we'll add the tubing. So finish this row and I will see you back. You can, if you don't have a thread attached, this one I can weave out to this side and use that. If not, if you don't have a thread there, you can weave one in, ready to start. So here we are over on the other side of the band, and my thread is coming out of the black bead right before a white bead. And I'm going to start row 12 on the other side. So for this, we're just going to be putting our white beads on either side of the existing white beads, and then working blacks in between. So 3 blacks, 2 whites for this row. Okay, so there we have row 12, and here we're working on row 13. Row 13 has the yellow in the center of the flowers and 4 blacks. So that's all there is to this row. So you can work on this, and I will see you back here for the next row. Nice and easy, isn't it? We are at the end of row 13, and row 14 you're going to add the white beads at the side of the yellows and the 3 black delicas. And that's all there is to this row. Okay, so I will meet you back here and we will do the increase for the next row. We've stepped up after row 14, and row 15 we are adding our 4 black beads, and that's our number 4. And on top of the yellow bead, we're going to add 2 white delicas. And unlike the previous side, we're actually going to do 2 above every single flower. If you remember, on the first side, we alternated it for 1 and 2. But on this, we're actually a row higher, and that's why this is we're getting the 2 in. You might have noticed you have an extra row on this side than you did on the other side, so that's why. Okay, so that's all you're going to do for this row. 4 blacks and 2 white delicas over the yellow seed bead. Okay, so once you've finished row 15, you're now at this stage and ready to put your tubing on. So measure the tubing in the same way. So you're just going to slide it around, mark it and cut it, add your clasp, and then just pop it in there. So that's all ready to go. And then you're just going to continue on with row 16, and on this row we're going to add our start of our next flower. So we're going to add 1 white bead and then continue with our blacks. So it's 4 black, 1 white, and treating the 2 beads as 1. So that's all there is for this round. Okay, so now that you've finished row 15, we're going to add the tubing. So you would, of course, just lay this around the bracelet and mark it and trim it, and then add your clasp section in so that you can just wrap your tubing around and close it up. And there, it's all ready to go. Okay, and then you're just going to carry on with row 16. And for row 16, the pattern is 4 black and 1 white. The white is going to be the start of the next flower, and so it needs to be centered between the other 2 flowers. So that's all you want to do for this row. Going through the 2 beads, as treating them as 1. and just working your way around. And we will come back after the next row. Row 17. And for row 17, you're going to be adding 1 black delica, then 2 black delicas over the 2 white ones. Fill that gap in. Then 1 black delica, and then you're going to work 2 stitches in the white delicas. Okay, so that's all that there is to this row. 1 black delica, 2 black delicas in the next stitch, and 1 black delica. 2 stitches in the white to work on our flower. Okay, all the way around like that. You can see it's going to sit around the tubing. When we start to bring these together and zip them all up, it'll all just work out perfectly. Okay, so there you go. I've finished that row, and I will meet you back on the next row. Okay, you can see at the end of row 17 how the beadwork is starting to curl around the tubing. And so we're going to move on to row 18. Row 18 is your black beads, treating those 2 as 1, of course. And then when you get to the white flower, you're going to put a red center in. So the size 11 seed bead goes in the center there. And this is kind of like the next little bit of an increase. So that's all there is to this row. Here we are, having stepped up after row 18, and we're ready to start row 19. You can see we're getting that curling around, really nice. Okay, so for row 19, you're going to add 2 blacks over the 2 blacks, so that big gap gets 2 beads, and then 1, and then we go into 2 stitches in the white beads for the petals of the flower. And then our 1 and then 2 and then 1 black beads. 3 stitches. Okay, so as we're going around, that's what we're going to work on. And we'll come back for row 20. Back after finishing row 19, and row 20 we are going to work with our blacks, and then we're going to alternate between 2 and 1 on the white petals. So 2 in this flower, we will work our way over to the next flower with our 4 black stitches. 3 and 4, and in this one we just want the 1 white delica on top, and that's what you're going to do all the way around, just alternating on the flowers 1 or 2 white delicas. Okay, so that's where you're going to look like. Okay, so we finished row 20 and now we're working on row 21. And row 21 is basically your 4 black stitches, and then in the 2 bead gap you're going to add 2 white beads, then the 4 black and the 2 whites. So you're just going to fill that large gap with the white beads. Other than that, it's black. Okay, and this is the last row that we're going to work on this side. So once you've done that, you can finish your thread off. Okay, so once you've got this side done, you're going to pick up your thread from the first side, and we're going to continue there with row 16. So from row 16, we're going to be adding 3 blacks, and you're just going to have one over the flower that has the 1 bead on the top petal, and then you're going to add your 2 whites, so one at each side of your white bead, and then into the blacks. So you're going to do 1, and then you're going to do 2 black beads in the next stitch because we've got 2 white beads. We need to fill that spot in, and then 1 black bead, then your 2 whites. So just like that all the way around. If you've got 2 white beads, you're going to put 2 black on top. If you've got 1, then 1 black on top. Okay, so row 17 on this side, you are going to work, the repeat is 4 of the black delicas, and then in between the whites you're going to add a blue bead, and then back to your 4 black delicas. And that is all you have to do for this round. Okay, so here we are, ready to start row 18, and this is the last row that we'll work before zipping up. So you're going to work your blacks, 1 black over the 1 black, because you're going to come up with 2, and the whites over the whites to make our flowers, our last petal flowers here. And then when you get to the gap where you have the 2 black beads, you will put 2 on top. So you're just going to work around adding these beads in so that we have that last row done before we zip it all up. Okay, so now we have both sides finished. We are going to weave these 2 together. So as you ease them, you'll see that those 2 whites are going to fit into the top of the flower. So that's your gauge. So you're going to just weave each side, and once you get going on this, it gets a lot easier when you're pulling it together. Okay, so you're just weaving side to side through both of those beads and in through that one. Okay, so now you've got that little weaving going on, and as you pull, you can see how it just zips together nicely over the tubing. Okay, it's always good to keep your tubing kind of at the side so that if you do get to around here and you're having trouble, your tubing was maybe a little bit too big, you can always undo it and snip a little bit off and pop it back on again so that it's fastened. Okay, but here we're going to go, and you'll see that right now you've lost a lot of your spin because it's all wide, so that's going to come down too. Okay, so that's all you're going to do, is just going to keep weaving side to side, zipping it up. Again, you'll come to your 2 sections of 2 beads, zipping it all the way up a few stitches and pull it together. And you just need to do that all the way around, and we will get, I'll show you when I've got a lot of the way around and we're almost there, just in case we need to trim this a little bit. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, be right back. You can see I've zipped a lot of this up, and as I'm coming around, you can see this is how it looks if your tubing is just a little bit too big. So what you want to do if you have this happen is unhook the tubing, and you're going to just trim a little bit off. You can pull it in and see, typically you're going to take off 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit short, because as you work, it'll all get kept in and you won't be able to tell with the beading. So you put your clasp back in and then just pop it back in. Make sure your beading is on the outside. Okay, so you can see that that's going to fit a lot better once we've trimmed that off. And you might have to trim it a couple of times just to make sure you get the right amount. Or just squeeze it a little bit tighter. But there, that's how you change it if you've got too much tubing in there. Okay, so then you can continue to zip. And we'll be right back. So here we are with it all zipped up, and as you can see, we have our nice little spinner going. I'm sure that you had a moment where you thought it wasn't going to spin, but I've worked it all out, so it spins. So there you go, that's your rotator cuff. Put a ring on it in the black and white.